Hey everybody, I'm here from Franklin Yard to give you a quick look into Bluebook. Now, Bluebook is College Board's digital testing platform, which means it's the platform that they're going to use to administer the digital PSAT and the digital SAT to you on your official test days. It also happens to be their practice platform, so you can actually download it today from the College Board website and use it to access any of their 4 officially released practice digital SATs or their officially released practice digital PSAT. Now, today what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the tools available to you, because it's going to be really important to understand what these tools are before you go in for the first time. But before we do that, I do want to show you just how to launch a practice test so you're familiar with the process. Once you've downloaded and launched this app, you will have to log in with your College Board account. But once you do, this is the screen that's going to open first. To launch a practice test, go down to full-length practice, select your exam, select the practice test you want to take, and then if you know that you will be testing with accommodations, know that you can toggle those on here so you can test exactly the way you expect to test on your test day. Now, what we're going to do is go to test preview, where instead of all 4 sections to navigate through, we're just going to have a short bit of both the reading and writing section and the math section so we can examine the tools available to you on each. So the first screen we're going to see when this opens up is the reading and writing module, and this is exactly how things are going to look when you launch your first practice test or your first official test. The only difference is this counter up here would normally be counting down, so it would give you a sense of how much time you have remaining in the section at all times. Because this is just a test preview, there is no time limit, so it just sits at 0. And of course, if you wanted to hide it, that's what this hide button does, but we think it's probably pretty useful to be able to track your time as you go. Now, there are a couple different ways in which the tools here help you to navigate this section, and they kind of fall into 2 categories. So the first category is tools that help you manage your visual field, and by visual field I just mean what you see on the screen in front of you. So first of all, you can resize windows, either using these icons here or by dragging this bar back and forth. Now, it's probably not that helpful for a question like this, but I'll show you an instance where it's more helpful in a little bit. You can also use this strike through feature to get rid of answer choices that you don't want to consider. So this is another way to kind of get things out of your view. Once you've toggled this on, it is going to remain on for all the other questions in this module. So just know that as we move through and go to question 2 and 3, this will stay there until you turn that back off. But don't worry about leaving it on. It's not going to influence anything. It's just going to keep those answers crossed out that you've chosen to cross out. Now, a third way you can manage how much you're paying attention to on this screen is by using the annotation feature. So whether or not you use this and how much you use this is going to really be an individual choice. But what it allows us to do is highlight a portion of the text by clicking on this annotate button, and we can even leave a note if we feel like that would be helpful. Now, if we want to see this note again, all we have to do is roll our cursor over the highlighted portion of text. So again, all of these tools are really about helping you focus your attention where you want it. Now, there are a couple of additional things that we can do. So as we move through, let's say we choose an answer for question 2, an answer for question 3, 4, I don't know, looks kind of hard. Let's just say we skip that one. 5 is A, but you know what? It's a poem, so I'm kind of confused. I'm going to mark that here for review. Now I'm going to move on to 6. Table is easy, great. And, you know, punctuation, let's just say A. I'm going to guess on that one. And then I'm going to flag this one because it just, you know, it's a different format. I see a lot of bullet points, super confused. Okay, so here's a nice feature of this test, and this now has to do with just managing your navigation of the test. So your ability to jump around in the section, choose which questions you want to answer, mark questions for later. So this review feature here is accessible down here. This is your bird's eye view of the section. So all of these questions in blue over here are questions that you've answered. The questions in white are the unanswered ones. And then whether you've answered them or not, any question you flagged will have that little flag up in the corner. So for 8 questions, you probably are not going to forget that you skipped question 4. But when your question sets are longer, it's totally possible that you'd want to skip one and come back for later, and you don't have to stress about remembering which one you skipped. Now, the other nice thing here is that, let's say you just kind of didn't bother to pull up this bird's eye view here. You just kind of kept hitting next, next, next. Well, when you get to the end of the section, it's going to pop up again and force you to take a look at all the questions that you've worked through so that you always know whether or not you've skipped any questions, flag them for review, and you can see which questions that you've also answered. All right, these are all the tools available in this section. I'll point out one more up here, which is that there is a little battery monitor up in the corner. This is going to be available in both sections, and keep an eye on it because you really don't want your laptop dying or your tablet dying as you're taking this test. So can't stress enough, bring that device fully charged. All right, now on to the math section. So the math section is going to offer us a lot of the same tools as the reading and writing section. So you can still strike out answers that you don't want to consider. You can still show or hide your timer. You can still mark questions for review and go down here to see a bird's eye view of the section. But you'll notice a couple differences. Most obviously, there is just one window for this question, so no window resizing. Now, that's because all of the multiple choice questions in the math section are just one window. That said, there is another type of question which involves a student-produced response that does have 2 windows, and this is actually a good opportunity to just kind of take this window and shrink it so that you see more of the question when you're working through it. Why is that? It's because these are just instructions and they're the same for every single one of these questions. So once you've read them, you know them. Now there are 2 other things that are unique to this section that I want to show you. One is this reference sheet up here. Now this is actually nothing new. This reference sheet was at the top of both of the math sections on the old paper SAT. It's just now we have it easily available to pull up for every question we work through. And the other thing is probably the most interesting tool on the entire test, which is the new Desmos built-in graphing calculator. Now, that might not sound like much. You've certainly used calculators before, and you may have used Desmos before. But this allows you to work through questions in a way that, say, like a TI-84 would not. For example, if you want to just solve a system of equations, and remember a system means 2 equations, like for instance 2 linear equations, you can plug them both in here, and it doesn't matter if they're in y equals form. There's no sort of like moving things from standard form to slope-intercept form. You can just plug the equation right in exactly the way it appears on the SAT and start solving. That slight advantage actually ends up being pretty impactful. And you can do that for all sorts of questions. We are not going to get into exactly how to use the calculator here, but I promise you getting good at this calculator will be worth it. What you can do here, just to give you a little bit of a glimpse, is, for instance, in this question, we could just plug in our equation here, y equals -6, x minus 32. And if we wanted to see what the y-intercept was, we can just scroll down or zoom out until we see it. Now, if you know anything about linear equations, you knew that already. So don't default to the calculator without thinking through the problem first, but know that this calculator does allow you to do a whole lot of things really, really well. And that's really the last big tool on this test. So once you get to the end of this section here, you have your same old review page. Everything else is consistent across both sections. So if you want to make sure that all of this makes sense to you and feels comfortable to you, the next thing to do is go download Bluebook and go explore. The more comfortable you are with this platform, the easier the test experience will feel. Good luck.